Hi there, my name is Andy and welcome to OneTV Source, your deep dive news show for topics all across campus. This week, we discuss what happened during the last government shutdown. Thank you for joining me, and welcome to Source. On December 11th, House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Charles Schumer clashed with President Trump over an appropriation of $5.7 billion for a wall on our southern border. In this famous clip, Trump said, "If we don't get what we want, we will shut down the government."
Yes, if we don't get what we want, one way or the other, whether it's through you, through a military, through anything you want to call, I will shut down the government.
Okay,
absolutely.
fair enough.
And
We
I am
disagree.
proud, and I'll
We
tell you what,
disagree.
I am proud to shut down the government for border security, Chuck. I will take the mantle. I will be the one to shut it down. I'm not going to blame you for it.
On December 19th, the Senate passed an appropriations bill that would fund the government through February 8th, preventing a shutdown. Notably lacking from the bill was President Trump's requested $5.7 billion. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell proposed the temporary measure in order to avoid a shutdown. At this point, the bill was still lacking the $5 billion requested by the president. He also said that without the money in the bill, he would not sign it into law. So on December 20th, the House voted to add this appropriation to the bill in a vote of 217 to 185. The bill was then sent back to the Senate for a second vote. On December 22nd, the Senate could not reach enough of a consensus to pass the bill, and so the government shut down at midnight. Rookie mistake. On January 2nd, Representative Pelosi and Senator Schumer met with Donald Trump to attempt to negotiate an end to the shutdown. At the end of the meeting, both Republicans and Democrats agreed that no progress had been made. On January 3rd, the 116th Congress was sworn in, shifting the House of Representatives into Democratic hands. Later that very day, the House passed two bills that would extend the funding of the government and end the government shutdown. Notably absent from the bills were the $5.7 billion requested by President Trump. On January 4th, meetings between President Trump and Democratic leaders were still unsuccessful. The president said that he would keep the government shut down for months or even years, however long was necessary to secure funding for the border wall. President Trump also said that if necessary, he could declare a state of emergency in order to divert funds from the U.S. military to pay for the wall. On January 8th, President Trump released the first formal address to the country on the issue. He said that border security was of the utmost importance and that the only way to ensure the safety of our nation was to increase border funding. Senator Schumer and Speaker Pelosi responded saying shutting down the government should not be a tactic for a president to get what they want from Congress. On January 9th, Speaker Pelosi and Senator Schumer once again met with President Trump in order to discuss opening the government and funding a border wall. Both sides seemed to be set in their policies. Schumer and Pelosi said that they would not negotiate until the government was reopened. President Trump said that without the funding, the government would not be reopened. President Trump then left the meeting, claiming that it was a waste of time. On January 10th, President Trump visited McAllen, Texas, and said in the plainest terms yet that he would be willing to declare a state of emergency in order to secure funding for a steel or concrete fence along the border. During his visit to Texas, the House was working to reopen portions of the government, including the Agriculture Department, the Department of Transportation, and the Department of Urban Development. Blech. The House also passed measures to reopen the IRS and the Treasury Department in order to prepare for the coming tax season. On January 16th, Speaker Pelosi sent a memo to President Trump suggesting that he consider postponing the State of the Union address if the government were to remain shut down. The State of the Union address is designated by the Department of Homeland Security as a national special security event. Speaker Pelosi's suggestion took into consideration the fact that the Secret Service itself is impacted by the government shutdown. On January 17th, President Trump canceled usage of a military plane Speaker Pelosi had been planning to use for an international visit to Brussels, Egypt, and Afghanistan. He said that the trip could be postponed until after the shutdown. On January 19th, President Trump addressed the nation in order to propose a deal to reopen the government. The deal would include fully funding the border wall in addition to other measures to combat immigration problems, such as hiring additional border control agents, increasing the number of immigration court judges that are available, and providing new technologies, such as drones, to border control agents. The deal would also postpone deportation dates for DACA recipients for a time of 3 years. Democrats responded saying that the subject of Dreamers, the DACA recipients, and a border wall should remain separate. They also claimed that the deal contained no real concessions from the president, since they were not interested in simply postponing the date of DACA deportation. On January 23rd, the Senate voted on 2 bills, one that had passed the House of Representatives, and the other President Trump's proposal. Neither bill passed. Finally, on January 25th, President Trump suggested that he would be willing to a stopgap measure that would reopen the government until February 15th, giving lawmakers 3 weeks to solve this issue. This would ensure federal workers received payment for the work they had done over the last 5 weeks of the shutdown, as well as secure funding for work they continued to do until February 15th. At the moment, it is unclear whether the government will remain open after February 15th. Partisan division seems to be stronger than ever. Press Secretary Sarah Sanders, at the first address from the White House of this year, said to those affected by the shutdown to call their Democratic representatives and tell them to fix the problem. Despite the strong partisan divides shown throughout coverage of the shutdown, we at OneTV believe it would be dangerous to place the blame for this shutdown on either political party or on any one individual person. Senators from both sides of the aisle wanted to reopen the government. Please, take a look.
Kind of unusual to be here on a Saturday morning here in Washington, D.C., but recognizing that we've been in the midst of a partial government shutdown for now 29 days, it seems to me that this is an absolutely appropriate place where we should be. We should be here working. We should be here trying to figure out how we get back to the business.
4 of us and many others on both sides of the aisle been working in good faith to try to say, how do we get out of this?
And so I hope my colleagues will raise their voices and demand a vote on the pending bipartisan House bills. If we vote and the bills fail, we will have to go back to the drawing board. And Madam President, I think we all know what will happen if we vote on those bills. If we vote on the House bills will pass.
I think there have been very good faith efforts to try to advance discussions on a bipartisan basis, a bicameral basis, trying to allow for a process that would allow us to consider the work, the legitimate request of a president who has clear priorities when it comes to border security and what we need to do and how we might need to do it. But it's very difficult to do it when we're not fully governing, when you have a partial government shutdown.
Let's not talk about blame. Let's get the government reopened, and then we can figure this out, but let's get the government reopened.
All of these senators are in favor of reopening the government and paying federal workers. They want to make certain that this problem is resolved and that the country is safe. Debate is arising over how best to accomplish these goals. Please contact our senators, John Barrasso and Mike Enzi, and our representative, Liz Cheney, in order to voice your opinion. Tell them where you stand on this and any other issues facing the national legislature. They are elected to serve you, and you should make certain that they know what your views are. Contact information for all 3 of them is in the description below. Thank you for watching OneTV Source. Join us next week, and stay tuned for more content from OneTV.